Hi everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about what a project is. Now we can't really talk about projects and project management without knowing what a project really is. So I'm going to just quickly talk about the definition of a project, and then we're going to talk about some characteristics that we're going to use throughout all the content that we talk about to refer back to when we start talking about other dimensions and concepts around project management. So let's first have a quick look at what a project is, the definition of a project. So the definition of a project is an ad hoc set of activities with logical relationships that are executed by a specific team to satisfy a specific goal by means of a once-off product, service or capability within a planned performance time and cost targets. Now that's a mouthful. Let's quickly rewind. Let's start again. So what is a project? A project is an ad hoc set of activities. So when I hear the word ad hoc, that's the first keyword. The ad hoc means it tells me that it's not something that happens in an ongoing, repetitive way. So if I think about a rhythm, if I think about something that keeps on happening the same every day or every month or every year, then I don't see something ad hoc. Ad hoc means it's something that happens if and when needed. It's something that pops up from time to time, but you can't really predict it too far in the future. And that is what a project is. Now, that's the first sort of concept or driving force behind a project. It's not something that you can really expect as a rhythm, as something that's going to happen. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we talk about a set of activities that is logically related or linked to each other. Let's talk about activities first. Now talking about, or forget about all the stuff that we're talking about here. I always say the first thing, if someone comes to me that know nothing about projects or project management or all this fancy stuff that we talk about, say, listen man, what is project? What is a project? Low level, just explain to me. Maybe it's an old lady that you talk about, that you talk with in the shops or something. Then I would say a project is a list of activities. So if you strip away all the other stuff, what's left is a list of activities, stuff that you need to do. And that's why that word, the keyword activities, is actually quite important. But what we say in projects is not just a bunch of stuff that we do. It's not just a bunch of activities. Those activities are logically linked to each other by what? By a goal. And that's why you'll always hear me talk about, whenever we talk about everything in terms of projects and project management, we always go back to the goal and say, what was the goal? Now, because the activities are linked to the goal of the project, something that we want to reach before a certain time, within the constraints of some costs, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So those activities are very important, and the link between them. Then we talk about they are executed by a specific team or specific people, and that is sort of the human side, the human approach to projects, and the teamwork, the management within your team. And then we talk about the goal. We already spoke about the goal, and we said that is linked to a once-off service, capability, or a product. So it doesn't need to be something physical. It doesn't need to be something that you build. We talk about a service capability or a product, something that you're going to reach, that you're going to build, that you're going to compile at the end of the day. That's a project. And then we talk about, at the end of the definition, we say there's always the constraints. And the constraints are planned performance time and cost. Performance, scope, quality, you want to do it within that constraints that you have. You always have limited time and you always have limited budget. I think you want to really balance those in the project management environment. Good, so that's the definition. Now let's have a look at some characteristics which we had a look at already, some of them, but let's just look a bit deeper into others. Number one, a project always have a strategic driving force, or what we call in the project world, a business case. What is a business case? It's driving the project from a strategic point of view. Remember, projects always sits within an organization or an environment that you are working in. So there must be some strategic link for doing that. And that's what we call the business case. So if you grab someone by the hand who's working on a project and say, hey, what are you doing here? What is the bigger goal that you want to achieve? That is the business case. It is what I call the problem statement behind the project. The project is a solution to a problem that you want to solve. So that's always a strategic driving force behind that. We've got always a goal. We spoke about the goal. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. A project is always something that is temporary. Now, it can't go on forever. Then by definition, it's not a project. So I work with a lot of projects, a lot of organizations which they don't really clearly define their projects, and also the difference between operations and projects, and there's this, I want to call it stuff that just goes on forever. That's not a project. Remember, if you walk into a project office or a project environment, again, you grab someone by the hand, you say, what are you doing here? When is this project finishing? They should have that somewhere written down or in their minds, because it's very important to know that all project stops. Yes, you get very long projects. Probably I would never say, I've never really heard or worked longer on a project or with people on a project that's like maybe 10 years maximum. Then you start going into the portfolio and the program management environment. I'm talking about the clear defined projects. Good. Then we're talking about the cross-functionality of projects. Now this is an important one, because it's challenging within the organization, within the project organization, because you always work with people and with groups and with organizations outside of your own, let's call it your management sphere, what you are used to and what you are sort of feeling comfortable with. So if I'm working in an organization, I'm in the engineering department, I have a project, and mostly to always, you've got some input or some projects, resources from other parts of the organization that you need to tap out of from with. The problem here is it's different kind of people, different mindset, and you need to know how to manage them. Apart from that, you also need to manage people from outside of your organization. Maybe you've got suppliers, maybe you've got stakeholders who's got not even an input into the project, but they've got some stake from the product of the project or something like that. So the cross-functionality of a project makes it difficult to manage, makes it a constraint within the project environment. That's why if you deal with projects, you always also deal with leadership, because leadership gives you the ability to manage the people in which you don't have authority over. And we're going to have another video about that, about project leadership and how that influence. And then lastly, in terms of the cross-functionality, which I always say, it's not really cross-functional, but it's challenging to work with people that's above you in the corporate hierarchy. Now, so apart from working with people outside of your, let's call it your business function, you also deal with people that's above, that's reporting to you in the project, above you in the corporate hierarchy, but also below you. And that takes a special skill to deal with. Good. So that is the cross-functionality. Then we talk about unique. Yes, there's a scale of uniqueness. Not all projects are 100% not unique, if you want to call it that. But I always say, if you really want to pin down the uniqueness of a project, what you will do is what you will call a unique project. If you can take the total full project plan from the one project and apply that to another. Now remember, we're talking about the project plan, we talk about the scope, we talk about the stakeholders, we talk about risk management, we talk about communication management, we talk about all sorts of influences on a project. So what I'm trying to say is, even if you have an exact same house or a project that you are building, or a software package that you are designing and building, exactly the same, it's going to be unique in the sense you can't take the project plan and copy that over to another. And that makes projects unique. So if you deal with that, you know you are dealing with projects. So that's the uniqueness of that. And then what comes with the uniqueness is the uncertainty. Remember, because we are dealing with something one at a time, we say we don't know what's coming because we've never dealt with this before in the total unique sense. So we know there's certain things, if you are a building contractor or if you are an IT coder or something, you'll know that there's certain, I want to say, flow throughout the projects. But there are going to be some stuff that you don't know about or did not think about in the previous project, or change a bit. And again, that, like I said, that taps back to uniqueness. That taps back now at the end of the day to how you deal with your stakeholders and how you deal with your risk stuff in terms of the project. Good. And then we say projects brings change. So even if it was a successful project that was rolled out successful, but there was no change from the way you did stuff or the environment that you were in before this, after the project, then you have a failed project, so it's not a project. And there's lots of great case studies on that, where they spend millions and millions of rands and dollars on designing and building something which is not used or used incorrectly, which can say that, well, per definition or per characteristic, you can say, well, that's probably not a project. Now, so that's a project always bring change. And then the last one, stakeholders. Remember, we already spoke about stakeholders a bit in terms of the cross-functionality of that. We must just remember, when we are dealing with projects, you are not on an island. And I mean, I'm sure some project managers will love that now, to say that, listen, we are totally isolated from everybody and everything. Now we can work on this project and finalize and finish the project. But we know life doesn't work like that. So when you are dealing with an environment, when you are dealing with a diverse environment, different people, different parties, different stakeholders, there's certain things that you need to think about in terms of that. Now, what we're going to do is these characteristics and the definition that I just spoke about, we're going to apply that throughout all of these videos that we're going to talk about. So this is a very, very important video, because if you don't understand the principle, the ground foundations of what we are managing. What are we managing? We are managing projects. Then the other stuff is going to be difficult to understand and to grasp the reason for thinking about certain things the way we're going to think about stuff. So I hope you've learned something. I hope you can take something out of this video, and I hope to see you again in a video soon.